Sunday. Race fans unite. It's $5 for your seat, but you will only need the edge. It's Pint of Comics. Sir John and Johnny Ganache with you here on another Sunday night. What is this, 115 of them?
I honestly forget.
How do you know every other week except for tonight?
I didn't bring it with me tonight.
All right. I'm not mad at you.
Welcome back.
I'm not mad at you. Hey, thank you. Back a little bit, off a little bit, back a little bit. Last week we were off because we were, thank you.
It was a very long weekend.
Thank you to Psychedelic Rick, who runs the psychedelicatessen around this place, because John and I were at the awesome, wonderful, that's right, Terrificon.
Yeah.
For 3 full days.
Not the awesome con. It's the Terrificon.
There is an awesome con, isn't
there
there?
is.
Yeah, that's right. Lou went to awesome con. That's right.
Hi, Lou.
So we're here. We're supposed to have a guest on, so we got to see if maybe there's a little bit of.
This seems to be happening a lot lately. I don't know. These guests are calling in late or forgetting.
I got to get that Zeppelin communication breakdown. I got to get a sound bit of that.
Oh, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
It's the summer. Things happen during the summer.
It does. Hey, you know what? Let's be honest. We've done 100 and let's say 14 shows. If 3 or 4 times someone forgets or something happens.
Yeah, I mean it's not the first time that Pint of Comics has had a hiccup.
That's right. Flint Dilly was on the wrong time zone.
Yeah.
He called 3 hours after we were gone. Larry Elig is just on another planet altogether. We love him. We love you, Larry.
It just happens, you know.
Yeah.
It's just it's life.
It does happen.
Life is chaos.
So while we're waiting, our guest, at the very least, even if there was a mix-up, let's get everybody out there to know who our guest is going to be eventually.
That's a good point,
either tonight or if it's not tonight, we'll get him back another point. Peter Simeti. Peter Simeti is he's the publisher at a company called Alterna Comics. Go to Alterna. I don't know. Luke, can you find out if it's alternacomics.com or just alterna.com?
I think it's alterna.com, right? And if not, I mean, you could find it. It's pretty
Alterna.
They're on Twitter and Facebook and all those lovely social media
Snapchat.
sites. Probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about Snapchat. I think is that the swipe one?
I got yelled at for saying FaceTime on the radio while you were gone at one point.
Why? FaceTime's a real thing.
Well, apparently no one uses it anymore.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm a little out of the loop when it comes to that.
All right. It's alternacomics.com. So check them out. Alterna Comics, bringing back newsprint, affordable prices, and comics for everyone.
Yeah, if he ever calls, we can talk about the the great pricing structure and the return of newsprint quality printing.
Yeah, really.
For comic
when was
books.
the last time you read a comic that was printed on newsprint? Let's segue into this while we're waiting, and if he never calls in, we'll just talk about this.
Yeah, really.
What is the quality of paper that most comics are printed on now? What is that called? Is that like a gloss?
Honestly, I don't even know. There used to be, in the 80s, they were doing all kinds of experiments with printing for different types of paper and thickness and glossy. And at one point, there was the Baxter paper. So when you picked up a comic that was on Baxter, it was about twice the price of regular 60 to 75% comic. So
really,
yeah, it was much more expensive. The colors were weird because it would just pop out at you. It didn't absorb the ink and the color like it did for newsprint, so it was handled completely differently. And if you go back and read some of these things, the printing is not the greatest because it was a big experimental thing that they were doing.
And it didn't last.
No, it did.
Oh, it did. Okay,
Yeah.
So it basically morphed into whatever we're looking at comics nowadays.
Yeah, printing is so different.
Because everything in a comic is different. I mean, if you pick up an old comic, even the covers, the stock on the cover is a different grade, I'm assuming, than what we're dealing with now. The covers nowadays
are a little bit different. Yeah.
Feel a little bit more, I don't want to say cardboardy, but a little more solid than they did back then.
Yeah, it's probably
Perfect example. If you're a comic collector and you're putting a current comic or a comic in the last 10 years into a bag and the tape gets on the cover, it will just come right off. If you got the tape on a cover in a book in 1982, you're going to have a piece of tape that has a little bit of the Incredible Hulk's lettering on the top of it.
And you may or may not have ruined your comic.
Yeah, exactly.
Ruined.
Destroyed.
Compared to, how they, the kids in the day used to just stuff them in their back pockets and get the crease on the fold.
Well, that leads us into a good little conversation here. I didn't realize I still have a loose phone. When you were a kid, now obviously bags and boards kind of come along for me, that was a thing that came along when I became a little bit older of a collector in my teens. I was worried to that point. But here we got a phone line.
Oh,
We've got a phone line.
That's loud. Let's put him right on.
All right, let's put him directly on.
Hi, Peter. Hold on a second. Hold on. I'm gonna switch that.
Hit that button. Press the other button.
There we go. Hi, Peter.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's
Throwing
going
you
on,
right on the air here just to speed things up.
Cool.
So welcome to Pint of Comics and WESU 88.1. Our guest, Peter Simeti, head of Alterna Comics.
Alternacomics.com. Check them out. Peter, what's going on tonight?
Oh boy, so much going on. I'm so busy with comic stuff, but thank you guys for having me on tonight.
No, thank you for coming on.
Hey, Peter, before you called in, we were just going over print quality and the way printing on comics is a little bit different these days. And since you're switching back or have switched back to the earlier style newsprint type of comic, what's the paper quality that they're using for the majority of the industry at this point?
If I had to guess, I'd say it's probably anywhere between a 60 to a 70 pound, either matte or glossy. I know DC on some of their stuff, they're using something that's a bit duller in a finish. It's not newsprint, but it's not anything like matte or anything close to that.
Okay. So it's not like, because I was going over the history of that Baxter paper that they used in the 80s for a brief period.
No, yeah, it's definitely not that. It's definitely not that. That would be nice, though.
And because the way the print has changed so much over the last 30 some odd years, it's not going to look as off key as it was back then, because that was a big experiment for some of these printing companies at that time. Yeah,
definitely not, and it's mostly because we can do modern coloring now. It's a lot of it's digital refinement, so the tolerances are a lot higher in terms of just getting things right, and there's not as much of that misregistration, and I love that kind of stuff too. It kind of has a charm to it, but this kind of thing, you can get the gradients down, you can get things looking really nice. It's just the paper is different. That's kind of really all it is.
Yeah.
Now we've talked about how you've gone back to newsprint, and in the probably 3 or 4 years that I've been kind of cognizant of Alterna, and I think the first time I had actually met you was at Granite State in New Hampshire a few years ago. You were already printing on newsprint. Did Alterna start on newsprint, or did you use these different papers and move back to newsprint at some point?
No. Alterna, actually, we started off doing print-on-demand issues back in 2006.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah. And then when we got into distribution, because of the different schedules and the different lifestyles of the creators, because a lot of them do work a job or two jobs sometimes, you can't really do that monthly grind. So we basically just did a graphic novel or two per creator out every single year. We got away from doing single issues for the most part. I think in the span of 10 or 11 years, we only put out maybe 5 or 6 single issues here and there. But I've been wanting to put comics back on newsprint for a really long time. The biggest problem that I found was that I was looking in the wrong direction. No one had used it for such a while, and anyone that knew didn't want to say. It's a web press. It's not an offset press. So once you know what press to look for, and then it's a whole different kind of printing setup. Web presses are everywhere. Newsprint is one of the most widely used, if not the most widely used paper stock in the entire world. And it's really affordable. It's about a third of the price of what they currently use in a lot of other books right now. So getting the newsprint comics out there a couple of years ago, it was mostly just a passion project kind of a thing, just to get comics back out on newsprint and just do it and say we did it.
Right.
I didn't expect too much from it, but they took off. And people really loved it, and they were missing it. And they were missing not only the feel of it or the way colors looked on it or the fact that the comic flopped just right and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They were missing even things like the smell of newsprint. And we've got books, we've got books now from 2017 that are starting to kind of have that familiar comic book newsprint smell because they've aged.
Like a fine wine, they've now aged to that smell of a Marvel book in 1983 that you had for a year.
Yeah, yeah. So Alterna books are a feast for the eyes and the nose.
There you go. All your senses will love Alterna.
Exactly.
I gotta say though, I mean, the newsprint itself seems slightly different from what was being used even back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So it is a different style of newsprint.
Yeah, really early comics were 100% newsprint, probably on something closer to like a 20 to a 24 pound, I'd guess, similar to what you would see being in most newspapers, I guess, today. And then they switched to slightly thicker stocks around the 70s, 80s. It was around, I'd say, maybe closer to what we're doing now, but a little bit thicker, possibly a 38 pound, maybe a 40. And then they kind of transitioned slowly into the glossy and the premium paper stocks, and a lot of the coloring at the time, it was definitely digital, and it was kind of new, but I think the industry really could have benefited from kind of sticking to more traditional coloring techniques, because a lot of that kind of transitional period in the 90s when it came to digital colors, it's pretty garish looking, and it's a lot of those early Photoshop tools, a lot of the dodge and burn and all of that, and it doesn't look as good as it did in the 80s. It doesn't have that clean kind of color feel to it. It was very digital looking. Things just looked a bit too saturated. And I think we see that a lot now when they do facsimile editions. They don't really adjust. I mean, they could easily put it on newsprint again, which should be great to see a facsimile edition on newsprint. But they don't really adjust and tone down the coloring and desaturate it just a bit to make it look a bit closer to the way it looked on newsprint.
Yeah, I was just yesterday looking at the reprint, the collection of one of the Alan Moore stories for Swamp Thing, and the way that those artists drew it then for the newsprint, it really stands out on newsprint, especially with the inks, the heavy inks that they use and that sort of thing. So the reprint edition, the colors are just like in your face. It's not as dark,
not as subtle.
Yeah. It doesn't have that swampy feel to it.
Well, they're making it sharper. You know, I know what you're saying.
And I'm not sure if it's like Peter says, if it's just because of the new process, and they're not toning it down to where the way it looked on the newsprint.
Right. Well, everybody out there, you know, the words remastered and recolored, and people just, they love that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it's not always necessary.
And it's not always, well, it doesn't look that great.
Right.
In some cases.
Yeah, it's like the Star Wars special.
Oh, I was just going to say that. Peter, I was honestly going to say that, and I didn't want to say Star Wars in front of John and get him all mad. But, like, absolutely. In 1997, if you had told me when I was 10 years old that in 1997 they were going to come out with the Star Wars special editions in the movies, and by the time they got to Return of the Jedi, I wouldn't even want to go. I would have thrown myself out of a bus. But that's what happened. Was I just didn't care after. You know, I went and saw the first one. I went and saw Empire, and I was like, you know what? I don't care anymore, because re-release the original, and I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been great, and I think that's what a lot of people expected it to more just be kind of a cleaned up, high definition version. Maybe the explosions a little more bombastic, but. You know, there needs to be at least 100 more wampas per scene.
Well, this is really the story I wanted to tell in 1977. So, you know, if you see the movie now, that's what the movie was supposed to look like in 1977.
The wampa quotient was off. So, Peter, we talked a lot about paper quality and about you know, a little bit about Alterna. Why don't you give us where did this all start for you? Like, where's your fandom? When did that start? And how did it end up evolving into you not only, you know, running your company, but like one of the things about your company that we'll get into, like we just talked about with the paper, is that you truly are kind of an innovator. You do things differently than a lot of other independent and major companies as well. So where did this all start for you?
It probably all started with the fact that I've always loved comics. I've been reading comics and at least drawing as long as I can remember. Even when I was young, I'd be drawing on the walls of my parents' house. And with crayon, which I'm sure they loved. But, you know, you see that big blank piece of wall. How could you let it just stay like that? So I really loved Spider-Man, Ninja Turtles, Batman, the X-Men. And then as I got as I got a bit older, I got more into Vertigo and a lot of those kind of stories, Sandman, Swamp Thing, and it just kind of took off from there a bit, and you go and discover more independent comics and more different ways to tell a story with comics, and it just kind of made me want to make my own. And eventually, by the time it came to make my own, I was looking around at publishers, and I was really new still to everything, so I didn't think I was necessarily ready yet for a publisher, but I figured I might as well look and see for when I think I'll be ready. And it just a lot of it didn't jive with me. It didn't make a lot of sense. So a lot of the different submission practices and what they wanted out of creators, and the amount of control that they wanted. You paid for it one way or another, even if it seemed like you still retained 100% of your IP, you still kind of paid for it in a couple other ways. So I figured I'll just do stuff on my own, and we'll see. Maybe I'll grow into it, and I'll get big enough, and then maybe one of the bigger companies will recognize me or something one day, and I'll write or draw, whatever it is, for another company. And that never really happened, and at this point I kind of don't want it to happen. I don't care if it does happen. I'm really happy just doing everything at Alterna. But by doing all this stuff on my own, it kind of got the attention of a lot of other people, and at first I wasn't taking submissions. I would tell people, no, it's not really a publishing company. I'm just kind of putting out my own stuff. But, best of luck to you, and that would be it. But after 6 or 7 months of that, and seeing a lot of really talented people have some similar stories to what I experienced in terms of their frustrations with the industry, and this is around 2005, 2006. I figured, let's maybe just start small, and I'll take on a book here and there, and we'll work together and see what we could do, and do signings, do shows. We don't have distribution yet, so we'll just kind of start really small and just take it step by step. And eventually, after doing that for a couple of years, we got distribution with Diamond, and we started off doing just really graphic novels into distribution, and we got book distribution soon after that. I think it was just maybe like 4 months after. And then we started getting books into Barnes & Noble and Amazon and all those other places. And it is kind of what it is now. It's kind of evolved into this. And like you said, we kind of zig when other companies zag, and that's what kept us around for so long. I don't really like to follow trends too much, because I feel as soon as you start following them, they're already dead anyway.
Right.
And the same thing goes for the submission policy. A lot of publishers want something that's on trend, but the thing is, by the time because we work our schedule 2 years practically in advance, by the time you get around to publishing that thing that was on trend, it's dead and gone. No one cares about that trend anymore. So I just focus on trying to get stories that I think will stand the test of time and people will enjoy tomorrow, or they'll enjoy 50 years from now. So it's kind of been great, the amount of creators that I've been able to work with because of that mindset. And it's nice to see people discover a book that they think is 100% brand new, and then find out, oh man, this is 5 or 6 years old. This is crazy.
Right.
It feels fresh. It feels new, and it's because it's got a timeless quality to it.
And one of your, I guess, models is that, unlike Spider-Man being on issue 700 or any, you publish almost everything. If I'm correct, there's nothing that's really ongoing. Correct? Everything is a series of miniseries. So at any one time, you have like this great kind of depth and breadth of different stories that people can get into.
Yeah, the only 2 titles we have right now that are technically ongoing is ICYMI, which is basically just a reprint series for all ages and young adult. And then it came out on Wednesday, which is a horror sci-fi fantasy anthology. Kind of got like a Tales from the Crypt, 2000 AD kind of vibe. But everything else, yes, it's a mini series, and we sort of treat it like a television series, where each volume is more like a season, as opposed to an ongoing comic series where it kind of continues off. Because a lot of the time right now, you'll see an ongoing series turns into a mini series, turns into a one shot, turns into canceled. Yeah. So right. We avoid that by just doing seasons of these series, getting them out there, and if people liked it and they responded, and the creative team, as long as the creative team wants to keep doing it, they have a home at Alterna. Because to me, it's one of those things where I'm a firm believer that when something's good, it just needs time. It just needs time to find its audience. So a lot of the time in comics, because everything is so trendy and like that, you don't really give a story enough time to find its way, and things get prematurely canceled often. So if a creator, as long as they want to keep putting the story out there, I don't care if it's even just 50 people reading the comic, I want to make sure it gets out there, and we'll just continue to promote it. And especially if it's good, it always finds its way.
Well, that's a good point where I've got a couple questions about your distribution through Diamond is only one of the ways you're getting the comics out there. I know I've talked to you about this at other shows where you're finding other avenues to sell these comics. So the Diamond numbers aren't necessarily the actual sales numbers of what your books are.
Yeah, I'd say the Diamond numbers they're close to half to a third in some cases of what the actual sales are.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
So, we sell a lot of books direct.
Okay.
And that includes direct to retailers as well.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And because we distribute to them too. And we also sell books on newsstand. Now, we had started selling books on newsstand with the whole entire line, the miniseries books as well. In 2017, I'd say. Yeah, we started pretty much at the same time. And that was Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, a bunch of independent newsstands. There's newsstands in Poland, Germany, Italy, France that carry Alterna. There's one that was doing really well, and they still do real well with them in Rockefeller Center in New York, which was kind of cool to hear. Because we had a fan that saw the books there, and they said, "Hey, you're getting an Alterna Comics at your newsstand," and they're like, "How do these do for you?" And the person running the stand said, "Yeah, the tourists seem to love them, especially the kids. The parents are wandering around, looking around, and they don't want kids always on their phone. So, they give them a comic, and they're a good seller because of that, which is great to hear."
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure that the price point is an easy sell.
Oh, yeah, easy sell. Yeah, because they're mostly 99 cents to $1.50.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's unheard of in today's.
This industry, everything's over.
That's like
$3.
1991 prices.
Yeah, we reset the clock. What's really funny is we had an issue that had an homage cover to Amazing Spider-Man 300, the McFarlane cover.
Okay.
And that issue had the same exact price on it as the issue from back then. It had a $1.50 cover price.
That's funny.
That's amazing, that price point.
Yeah, I got to ask about newsstands, though. I mean, for the most part, they're like a dead dog. There's not much newsstand distribution left in this country.
No, yeah, and technically at this point, a newsstand is literally anywhere that you'll find a magazine.
Okay.
So we're always looking to expand into more newsstands. Like right now, a couple months ago, we got a deal into Sheetz, which is basically like a Cumberland Farms or a Wawa or a Circle K. And they're in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, that kind of region. And what's funny is that we tried to keep the announcement on the down low because we wanted to say something during San Diego Comic-Con. But a couple weeks before the show, about a couple dozen different Alterna readers and even some non-readers were taking pictures and finding them and then telling us on social media and spreading the word. And we were like, oh, well, might as well just say that we have the deal. And it was great, though, to kind of see that because we didn't promote that at all. We were trying to keep quiet about it, and people still found them anyway.
That's great.
And the thing is, if they're seeing us out there, in some cases, these weren't even people who knew of Alterna before they saw the comics at Sheetz. These were longtime comic readers who kind of stopped reading comics for a while because they didn't have a shop in their area. Newsstands didn't carry them anymore, that kind of a thing. And they just really thought, reading new comics right now where they're not readily available, it's kind of more trouble than it's worth. So it is what it is. But then when they saw our comics there, they picked them up, they really liked them, and many of them, we have an ad in the books that direct you to your local comic shop. You can go to comicshoplocator.com, and that's an ad we just put in there. We don't get paid or anything like that for that ad. We put that in there to benefit the comic shops. And those people all said, we found this, we saw the ad, and we're going to our local comic shop. And we're picking up more Alterna, and we're going to see what else they have, because I didn't know there was a shop 10 or 15 miles from me that was opened up, and I didn't know it was there because I had stopped so long ago.
Wow.
You know, $1.50 issues.
Yeah.
Right? Affordable comics, putting free ads in to get people to read books. If this was a James Bond movie, you'd be a bad guy that no one knew. You would be that philanthropist that really is trying to drill into the center of the earth. Is that what's happening here, Peter?
It must be.
Yeah.
It must be. So I've heard.
Well, I mean, I've done it myself, and I know John's seen it at multiple shows that you've been at. You know, we've run into you obviously at Terrificon. We talked about Granite State. We talked about Plastic City a couple months ago. When I see people go to your booth, the thing that ends up happening a lot of times is, as opposed to another, you know, maybe independent place where they're going to buy one comic for whatever it is, 3, 4, whatever the amount of money is like I see people grabbing the entire series.
Right.
If it's a 5-issue series, that's $7.50 or $8. That, you know, instead of like buying one for $150, well, you know, it's less than $10. I can read all 5. And in my mind, if it's good, great. If it was something I didn't care about, just as great. You know what I mean? I can give it to somebody that might like it. And that just speaks to kind of like the really smart plan you have, because I'm assuming that you probably, do you see, like when someone comes to your table to buy a book, do you see more single issue sales, or do you see people buying more of like an entire run?
We see, I guess, kind of both in a way, because we also see people who come in there and they don't believe the price at first. They think these are vintage comics. And I have to convince them, because they're used to seeing comics at $4 or $5 a piece. I'm like, no, these are brand new. The reason they're affordable is because they're on newsprint. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, really. And I'm like, we've got signs here. If anything, at the shows we do, they're usually 4 for $5, so they're even cheaper. And so they start buying them, and they start looking through them. And then all of a sudden, something clicks. And with most people, you see it. And they realize, I'm not spending really any money here. I should just kind of pick up anything that looks even remotely interesting to me. So they'll walk away a lot of the time with a stack of 20, 25 comics and pay something like, what is that, $35, maybe 30, around there. Yeah. And it's crazy. They can't believe it. They cannot believe it. But they'll just look at stuff and they say, hey, as long as it looks good to me, I'll try it out. And especially at Alterna, too, we make sure to kind of keep the covers looking fun and put taglines on there, very, very old school style. And it's almost always either the cover artist is the same exact artist that's on the inside, so you don't have that bait and switch feeling,
right?
Or it's someone who's very similar. So I'd say 99% of the titles it's the same exact artist. And if anything, I like that too, because I like to feel like we're also saying, hey, the cover art, it should just be like the interior art as well, because this guy worked hard, or this woman worked hard on the inside, and she or he should have their art on the outside too.
Sure.
You know, a lot of the time you see this cover art that doesn't match the interior, either better or worse, and it does a disservice to the inside, and it feels kind of weird to have that kind of experience. So we try not to do that. But people love that, and they go, wow, you know, I can't believe that this is really good cover art. Is this the same artist on the inside? And I open it up, and I'm like, yes, it is. And then they go, oh, wow, I gotta get this. Mm. So it's been great, especially when we do shows, to see a lot of pleasant surprises across the people's faces, because, man, oh man, I tell you, comics are getting more expensive. I know you guys know that.
Oh yeah.
And it would be great if they were less expensive, because it gets the books in the hands of more readers, which is what's so very important, as opposed to kind of feeling like the comics should only be catering mostly to a collector's market or a smaller market that's just diehard fan readers. The thing is that the more we just cater to diehard readers, and we should, don't forget them as well, absolutely, but the more we just cater to that audience, the less we're going to grow an audience of new readers that turns into diehard readers.
Exactly.
So it's so important to just keep things accessible.
He's obviously thought a lot about this.
Sure.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Smart man.
Smart man for sure. All right, Peter, we're going to be back with you in a couple minutes. We have to pay some imaginary bills here. You're listening to Pint of Comics with Peter Simeti. During the break, while we're gone, go to alternacomics.com and you can start checking out some of their awesome product. You're listening to Pint of Comics, WESU, Middletown. And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe. Oh, God,
All right,
nuts.
learning lessons from helicopter pilots that have mustaches and wear mirrored sunglasses. WESUFM.org, WESU Middletown. We are Pint of Comics, Sir Johnny Ganache, our special guest, the publisher of Alterna Comics. Is that your actual title, Peter? Is that what I should call you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, publisher.
That's fine.
It's good. Peter, all right, so we want to get into a couple other things here. Number one, I want to talk all about, and I want you to explain to everybody what it is, Alternaween.
Alternaween, oh boy, that's a lot of fun. Okay, so last year we had Alternaween 1, I guess. That was basically it's a campaign on Indiegogo, and it was all about using our comics as trick-or-treats, and it would help us to continue to grow, expand, get into places like Sheets. And last year it did great. It was close to 500 backers, close to $17,000 raised. A lot of comics even went out to kids that were in children's hospitals, and we donated about, I'd say about 500 to 600 to Shriners in Boston as well for the kids.
Nice.
And it helps out too, because obviously they can't really get out and about for Halloween, and we bring Halloween to them, a little bit of fun for trick-or-treating. And so last year it was great. 15,000 comics went out. Wow. And the thing that was nice about that is because we do have a wide range of titles at Alterna, all ages, teen, young adult, mature. But the all ages titles in particular that were being used as trick-or-treats, it was really great to see people taking pictures of the Halloween trick-or-treaters that came by, and they would have these comics and ear-to-ear grins on their faces. And a lot of these kids were telling people, this is my first comic book, you know?
Wow.
And there's something really important with that, too, because not only, as we were talking about how comics aren't in as many places as they should be nowadays, not only are you turning on the lifelong love of comics, perhaps, for a young reader and getting them to read more and things like that, but you could also be inspiring the next greatest comic creator.
Yeah.
So it's very important to do that and to make sure that the next generation of readers and creators is being taken care of and being shown, hey, you know, comics are great, and this is something that you can do. This is something that maybe inspires you, puts you down a great path towards writing and art and creativity and everything that's wonderful about comics.
And what I really like about Alterna itself is the large breadth of genres that you have. It's not just strictly superheroes, which some of these companies are doing, or there's no big shared universe. There's science fiction, there's fantasy, there's all kinds of fun stuff.
Humor.
Humor
comics,
titles.
yeah.
Or one of our recent favorites, the Mighty Mascots.
Yeah, Mighty Mascots.
Yeah, by Massachusetts native Keith Gleason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
fun stuff.
that book is awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's a fun book. For those that don't know, it's about a bunch of serial mascots that have a strange accident with a 3D printer, and they come to life, and they fight crime now.
It's a very cool book. As a matter of fact, I just bought from Keith at Terrificon. I bought the Horatio Honeyflakes pin for John here.
That's my favorite.
Oh, great, yeah.
I love that character. It's just the name, the whole concept behind it. It's just it's hysterical.
And Keith actually mentioned to me during an interview with him there. I hope I'm not throwing him under the bus. Maybe this was an industry error at Alterna Secret, but he said that starting with Mighty Mascots, you guys are doing something interesting with collected editions coming up.
Yes, it's we're launching in November, starting with the Mighty Mascots, a line called Alterna Giants. And the Alterna Giants are going to be 80-plus pagers that are going to be for $4.99.
Ooh.
So you're taking basically, like Mighty Mascots is a 3-issue miniseries. You're going to put all 3 issues in it, and then is there going to be anything else in there, or is it just the 3 issues? I mean, which is still an awesome value.
Yeah. The 3-issue miniseries, the first volume is going to be collected. It's going to be kind of like a no-frills graphic novel.
Oh, right. Well, that's cool.
Not a lot of back matter or anything like that. It's just going to be the story. But unlike most kind of reprinted Giants that are for $4.99, this is going to be the complete arc of a story. So you at least get everything there, and it's not just bits and pieces that have to do with the character or anything like that.
That's cool. I like that.
You just sit around all day with a notepad thinking of new things that you could do with the comic industry. I mean,
I've got hundreds more, just not enough time.
I'll be honest. I told Peter this a couple years ago. John couldn't come with us, and me and Lou went up to Granite again in New Hampshire, and I was talking to
you keep promoting this con.
Well,
I've never been
that's
to.
where we were. And it was I was talking to one of your writers. I think it was Cody Sousa. Was that his name? Yeah, he did. Was it Croak?
Yeah.
A cool little horror book. And I'm talking to Cody, and he keeps on referring to Peter Simeti, and I had seen Peter's name a million times on Twitter and stuff. No, I knew you were in charge, but you were standing right next to him, and I didn't know until he told me that it was you because. In my head, I'm thinking of the guy with the cigar in his mouth. Go print these comic books, and instead, you're a relatively young guy. It just goes to show that if you care about something enough and you put your foot forward, you could do it. Because I didn't expect a guy your age to be kind of running this type of thing, and it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not too young. I'm 35.
you're young.
But yeah, there's tons of people that come to the table and they're like, I thought you'd be at least 50 years old, and it's always funny. It's always funny because especially I love comics on newsprint. I love a lot of the old school comic stuff and that whole era of comics. And to me, it's just that's what I grew up with, and that's what comics were for so long. It doesn't make a whole much sense to me to abandon that. It's such a rich history of comics, and so many people miss the newsprint. So many people miss just fun escapist stories, stuff that's not necessarily tied into today's world. It's part of the reason we love movies and comics and things like that is to escape today's world. And we always have a lot of great stuff at Alterna that allows readers to do that.
Ganesh here, he's really excited. He's hoping at some point that you're going to come back with the romance comic line.
Yeah. John makes fun of me because he likes to read like old Charlton romance comics, and I just couldn't imagine that. But you know what?
They were the last company producing them right up through the 70s.
Is that in one of your notebooks, Peter? Are you thinking about maybe bringing back like Nurses in Love or something like that?
Oh, I'm open to all of it. I just need to see a really good submission, because that's the thing. Everything at Alterna is creator-owned too. So we don't have characters that people work on and anything like that. It's they bring their ideas, they bring their vision, and I see if I think it'll do well, or a multitude of things. I mean, I make sure not to publish the same kind of comic twice. And it doesn't mean that we don't want two zombie comics or anything like that. It means that there's a lot of similarities sometimes between stories. Yeah. And one time it was so strange. I got in I think 8 submissions within 2 weeks, and it was all involving samurais that were wrestlers. And I thought, is there a contest that had occurred, and that's why all these people are submitting this thing? Because it can't just be everyone had the same idea at the same point in time, because it takes time to make a comic too.
Yeah.
So it had to be something like that. I never found out, but sometimes you get strange things like that.
Samurai wrestlers. And one of the other things I wanted to bring up too, because I think this also goes, again, at 35, you've done this. One of the stories that you actually produced for Alterna was The Chair, which you also made a movie out of.
Yeah. So The Chair is it's my book, and it's something that we put out print on demand. The issues came out around 2006, and then 2008 it was mass distributed as a graphic novel. And that got turned into a film around 2016. I think 2017 is when it really started making the rounds and going to places like Amazon Prime and things like that. But yeah, it's a death row psychological horror thriller, and the film stars Roddy Piper in his last feature film role before he passed away.
I was just gonna say it's got to be his last film.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was great. Roddy was the best.
And what did you do in terms of the movie itself? What was your role? Was it just screenplay, or did you direct this thing?
So in terms of the movie, I wrote the story. I co-wrote the screenplay. It was more kind of like an editing thing on the screenplay. Erin Kohut wrote the screenplay, I'd say 90% of it. She did a great job. That's my wife. We met basically through the whole thing with making comics and The Chair and everything else. because she had edited the graphic novel as well, and did a wonderful job on the screenplay and really fleshed out a lot of the characters. Because in comics, you don't really think about side characters too much when it's a character-driven piece between just really two people. So a lot of the guards were kind of one-dimensional. They didn't really even have names for the most part, and we fleshed them out more for the film. And she did a really great job with fleshing out the backstory on the characters too. And that was basically me doing producer stuff, casting. Casting was kind of fun. I kind of contacted 90% of the cast through social media. And there was a lot of interesting cases too, where I reached out to people that they couldn't do the film for one reason or another, scheduling conflicts, things like that, or just a polite thanks but no thanks. But some fun ones. Mark Hamill, that was a fun one, especially when I had reached out just for a small cameo of a role. His wife had gotten back to me and sent me an email and saying, "Oh, he's going to be filming Star Wars in London during that time." And I'm thinking, like, I don't think they announced that yet.
That's awesome.
So that was kind of funny. And then Tony Todd was really kind. We tried to get him in. Scheduling conflicts happened. Same thing with Doug Jones. And what was really funny at Turficon, Derek Mears was there, and so he passed our table. And we called out to him, just being like, "Hey, Derek, you're awesome. How's it going?" And he came over to the table. He was so nice, super, super nice guy. And what was really funny is that he shared the same agent as the person who played the warden, Bill Oberst Jr. And we had tried to get Derek in the film, and I told him all about it. And we kind of had a laugh about it, and he's like, "That's crazy." He's like, "I can't believe I was almost in this thing." He's like, "Tell me about it." So I told him about the movie and said that Roddy was involved too, and he had a really nice Roddy story to tell me. Everyone seems to have a great story about Roddy Piper. He's just such an awesome guy. And he bought the film. It was surreal, but he was super supportive, so nice, and it was kind of funny to meet him, considering that he was almost in it.
Almost in your movie, yeah. Me and Lloyd on like the second night of Terrificon walked over to him just to say hi and just kind of say like, "Hey man, you're pretty awesome." And he was like the most down to earth, super nice guy on earth. He was like introducing himself to us like, "Well, I'm Derek." It's like, "Well, we know who you are." Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got a banner behind you. We walked over to you, but like it wasn't disingenuous. It was very real. He was very cool.
I've been hearing a lot of stories about him.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much what everyone's saying. He's just a genuine guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
super he was great. Great, absolutely.
Now, at any point when you were maybe on set and you were maybe talking to Roddy Piper, did you ask him to recite the bubblegum line, or is that just like, "No, we're not doing that"?
He had an idea for a second, and I told him, because he wanted his character to have, and he kind of had it in the film. He's always chewing on toothpicks. So he wanted to have a line where he goes, "I'm all out of toothpicks." He's like, "I come here to kick ass and chew toothpicks, and I'm all out of toothpicks." So I kind of was dying. I was like, "You know what? Even if we don't use it, we could use it as a deleted scene." But they never got around to it. But yeah, that was funny when he was joking with me about that. And he was saying that he had a notebook that he kept during They Live while they were filming, and he had all these lines, because that was an improvised line he had. Yeah. And that he had showed the notebook to John Carpenter, and that John Carpenter kind of just like laughed a lot of it off, but he really liked a couple of the lines, and that was one of them. And so that was kind of interesting too, because a lot of the times you talk to Roddy, and it starts off with just talking about the movie and things like that, and it kind of turns into a conversation about his past in wrestling or movies, asking about, how are things with me? How did I get involved with stuff? How's my family? Like, he was such a sweet guy.
That's great. It's always crazy.
It was great.
It's always crazy when, like, for me, when growing up, Roddy Piper was the bad guy wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, he was the whatever they call that, the heel. And then you see him, he becomes this kind of like movie star, and then you read about him and find out that, again, like you said, like just like a nice dude, and then
which is a testament to how good of an actor he was, that he could pull off being such a bastard in the ring.
Yeah, that's the thing that people I don't think about with a lot of these wrestlers is whether they're good or bad, how they transition into movies. Yeah. They're already acting. You know what I mean? They're already, you don't think about it, but like these guys are already pulling off a con job on you, because a lot of, they're normal people who are now larger than life, and that's all that Brad Pitt or anybody out there is just a normal guy who just knows how to turn it on and do different things. So yeah, that's a cool story.
Action man.
Yeah, the improvisation that they do all the time is incredible. Especially Roddy. Roddy was, he's like a machine gun for a mouse.
Yeah.
So he was just coming up with all this stuff constantly. I can only imagine what that notebook must have looked like for They Live. I would have loved to seen that.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, it was great talking to him about it. He was one of the only actors too. Whenever he had an idea, he'd give me a ring or a text and say, "Hey, I got this idea. I want to make sure I'm doing right by the character. I don't want to just do it and have it, be disrespectful to your creative vision." And I'm like, "Wow, Roddy Piper, seriously? Like you're giving that much thought to caring what I have to say about it?" That it blew my mind because.
Yeah.
I always loved Roddy, and I had bed sheets of Roddy Piper when I was a kid, when he was on Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestlers, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just funny how that happens.
Somehow on Pint of Comics, we always end up talking about wrestlers.
We talk about wrestling quite a bit, even though we don't watch wrestling anymore. But it's part of pop culture.
That golden era, man.
Yeah,
Macho Man, Roddy Piper, Hulk Hogan, all those guys.
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, man.
Oh yeah,
I loved him. Yeah, it was definitely a great era. So Peter, there's a question. When we were doing at Terrificon, I asked a couple of the comic creators we interviewed, and I know you write and you're an artist, so you do both. What do you prefer? Well, like if someone sat, you sat yourself down, you're the boss, and said, okay, my next project, I'm either going to write or draw. What do you lean towards? What do you enjoy doing more?
If it's a comic, definitely to write it. I like drawing. I like drawing a lot, but I don't have the patience for sequential art. It's just, if anyone has seen my art or knows anything about me, I'm the guy that does the 5-minute sketches, and for a time I was doing 1-minute sketches, and it's because I just want to be over and done with and move on to the next one. So I like doing covers, and I like doing quick sketches and things like that, but sequential art, I'm sure if I really tried, I could force myself to do it, but it just wouldn't be any fun, and I think that would translate to the page. So people that really have a blast at doing it and doing it well, my hat's off to them, because for me it's torture, it's maddening. But writing and collaborating with getting something done, especially, it's really nice when you write a page and then you see the art come back and someone just gets it. The artist just completely gets it right, and they practically reached inside your brain and put the images on the paper, and they did such a wonderful job, and that's a real fun part.
So we've been talking about Alterna and about the paper and the price point, and we talked a little bit about some of the books you put out there, and we got a few minutes left. Why don't you quickly? No, I'm not saying quickly. Why don't you go over? Why don't you give everybody out there like five titles that you guys are producing or have produced, and a quick little rundown just to kind of get people's minds going. Like, hey, I want to check this out. Any 5 titles that you can think of off the top of your head that you want to give a little a plot synopsis and that kind of thing.
Okay, sure. So we've got Blood Realm, which is probably one of our most popular titles right now. That's a title that's really great for the D&D crowd. It's got a Dungeons and Dragons vibe. It's really epic scale dark fantasy, all about the forces of good and evil fighting against each other for a sacred relic. Really terrific story by Robert Geronimo, who does pretty much everything on the book. It's got a wonderful black, white, and red color scheme, and nice kind of. It almost looks like he's doing wood etchings on the art, but he's drawing it so detailed. It's crazy. We mentioned Mighty Mascot, so that one definitely pick that up. It's a fun story by Keith Gleason with art by Ian Warianto and Anton Bandy. We've got Eden is a really fun story that's a sci-fi fantasy adventure, kind of reminiscent of Star Wars in some ways. It's about a mother named Naraya who gets separated from her child when they crash land on a planet called Eden, and the planet's supposed to be this perfect paradise, but you quickly discover that it's anything but. So that one's a lot of fun. We've got The Chair, we already said that, so I'll mention a couple others. We've got It Came Out on a Wednesday is a lot of fun.
Yes.
I love that one. That's a really good one. I personally edit and compile that one, and man, oh man, getting in the stories every month is a blast. It's a horror sci-fi fantasy anthology. It's usually double sized, so it's 40 to 56 pages, and it's just $1.99 as well.
It's a killer deal. I mean, for me, I've read it.
Yeah, you're
and
a fan. Yep.
I've turned on to a lot of different things. I mean, Exilium in the first issue, I opened that thing up and I was like, there is no way this book is coming out from this publisher. It's way too. It's something that should be out from Marvel or DC. It's that kind of quality. So to come out from Alterna, I was like, that's a way to draw a reader to you.
Yeah, and we always compare Exilium as kind of like our Star Trek Battlestar Galactica kind of book, and then Eden is kind of more like the Star Wars kind of book.
That's a nice way to do it.
Science fiction, space fantasy.
Well, and then I mean, and it came out on a Wednesday. I mean, you've got crazy stuff in there like Log. I love Log.
Yeah, that's actually going to become a biannual one-shot, a $1 one-shot.
Oh,
so look for that in January, Legends of Log.
It's such a silly concept, but it works. It works so well.
Yeah, you just an enchanted log running around with an axe and having adventures and protecting the forest and smiting evil.
I don't know. I really took to it. I don't know why. It's just so simple and weird. Maybe that's it.
That's a fun part about what comics used to really be. Is it just it just was.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You got bitten by a radioactive spider and now you have powers like a spider. What does that mean?
Yeah,
I don't know if Spider-Man becomes a hit nowadays. Everyone overthinks everything. Just go with it. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we really accepted a lot. Without very, the Fantastic Four, they were on a space cruise and got hit with a cosmic ray. Boom, we're cool with it. There's a rock guy now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The pseudoscience is what makes a lot of it fun.
Sure.
Right. No, you're right. People do think too much.
Oh, Alterna Comics, you gotta love them.
Yeah,
they're great.
Yeah, putting out a lot of stuff.
We have so many things. I think we have over 20-something titles out right now, and over. Boy, if I compiled every single issue we've done in the past 2 years, it's over 100 issues, but currently it's about 80.
Okay. How many do you publish a month right now?
Usually between 5 to 7.
Okay. So it's an easy thing to follow if you want to collect the whole thing.
Yeah, you can easily go to your local comic shop and spend $10, and in most cases they give you back change.
Yeah. Well, we got a testament to here, Lou, who does our part of our show and does our video. He went to our local comic store that didn't at that point I think carry any Alterna, and now you get several titles, right? He gets all of them. Sorry, not several titles.
I had a yearly subscription last year.
Oh, yeah.
So he gets them all. He gets everything that you put out, and it was very easy for Dan over there at Boomtube Comics in Southington, Connecticut, to get him all those books. And so you're making it too easy, Pete. When are you gonna? When's this all gonna? When are you gonna down? When's it gonna be $4.99 a book? I'm telling you, the James Bond thing. That's gonna be the end result. We're gonna find. No, you know what we're gonna find out? We're gonna find out Alterna paper is actually it's like baby seal fur. Or something.
What it is that and you're forcing me to spill the secret, but I might as well do it here. What it is that we've got a hidden layer inside of a volcano where we mine all the newsprint.
Yeah, I figured.
It's very rare and expensive. We're just, we're taking the loss because there's subtle things in it that when you smell the newsprint, it's mind control.
Yeah, there's too much good stuff going on at Alterna.
I gotta ask you real quick before you go: is newsprint being used by any other publishing firm at all other than newspapers?
Well, they use it a lot with grocery store flyers and auto trader magazines.
So
as far as comics go, though, I know that there are a couple publishers who say that they're using newsprint, but it's not actually newsprint. It's just a thin, uncoated paper stock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh,
yeah.
Interesting. Paper quality. That's how we start the episode. That's how we're going to end the episode.
Yeah, Peter, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. Give everybody your social medias and any of that cool stuff so they can immediately go follow you and then immediately go tomorrow, because it's Sunday night, immediately go to their local comic store tomorrow and start getting some Alterna goodness.
Yeah, go down to your local comic shop tomorrow, especially we've got a bunch of them in Massachusetts, too, that follow Alterna and carry all of our stuff. You can follow Alterna Comics on Twitter at Alterna Comics, and you can say hi to me as well at Peter Simeti. And make sure to go to alternacomics.com/retailers to find a local retailer near you that carries Alterna.
Very nice.
Made it very easy.
Peter, where are you going to be next?
I'm going to be at GraniteCon.
Go
Yeah.
figure.
Yeah. Well, I think you're from that area too, right? So that's probably like your backyard show.
Yeah. It's maybe about, I'd say, 35 minutes away from me. And this will be, I think, it's either the fourth or the fifth year in a row that we've been there. And it was a great show last year, one of our best. And I noticed that every single year we're doing better and better at all the shows, and more and more people coming up and telling us where they're getting Alterna from. And, you know, back in the day, it would be, I'd have a whole spiel ready being like, oh, have you heard of Alterna before? And I'm always expecting no. And lately, 80% of the time, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm reading this and that and this. And I'm like, it just throws me, I got to get another spiel ready because I don't have a follow-up for when they're saying yeah.
Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's growth. That's what we need. So
Yeah. Hey, Peter, thanks again for coming on. This has been great.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.